Welcome back, everyone. This is Thomas Triple T Tie with another new bullish crypto analysis. Before we dig in and take a look at the crypto and equities markets around the world, remember this is for edutainment only and not to be considered as financial advice. At any time when you feel value has been added or you want to help get the analysis out to people, feel free to smash the like, ring my bell, hit subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comment section. Let's dig into the news first, and then we'll look at the charts. That's a lot of news, so bear with me here. But they all impact our markets around the world. So mortgage rates just hit a 12-year high. The 30-year fixed rate mortgage averaged 5.11 in the week ending April the 21st, up from 5% the last week, and this is according to Freddie Mac. It's the seventh consecutive week of increases, and significantly higher than the 2.97 average this time last year. And an article on CNN talked about the Fed is about to get tough on inflation. Nothing new. We're expecting it. They mentioned that last month the Federal Reserve raised the interest rate for the first time since 2018. They did do that. That's 25 basis point in March. And the St. Louis Federal Reserve President James Bullard, one of the more hawkish just means that someone's more aggressive versus dovish. They're more, they're less aggressive. They're more timid. They're softer. So when someone's hawkish, that means that they want to be more aggressive with raising interest rates in this scenario. So he's reiterating that the Fed needs to take expeditiously in raising interest rates. And he suggests up to 75 basis points. And a basis point is 1/100th of a percentage. So 75 is 75/100th of a percent. It's estimated the market has already 100% priced in at least 50 basis points for May, and about 70% chance of 75 basis point for June. According to CNN, Nestle, the world's largest food company, has hiked prices by at least 5% in the first 3 months of this year as it passed rising costs to shoppers. Also, keep in mind that companies will use inflation as an excuse to raise prices and also shrink down the amount of goods or products in those containers. Very minute, but they do that. Consumers in North America took their hardest hit with 8.5 rise in prices. As they mentioned that in their first quarter earning report. Latin America saw the second biggest increase of 7.7, and its CEO Mark Schneider signaled that those are just the beginning. That's just the beginning. There are more increases on the horizon. According to Market Watch, the Fed may need to be even more aggressive with fighting inflation as U.S. households' cash, so the amount of cash U.S. households have, exceeds their debt for the first time in 3 decades. That's 30 years. So that's interesting. This is according to the Deutsche Bank. So this may give the Fed more ammunition to be more hawkish in raising interest rates. Since American households have more cash than their debt. Okay. According to the Motley Fool, why Tesla's stock took off today. Well, it's not a mystery, but let's go over some numbers. And so Tesla is it's got a market cap of about $1 trillion. Quite amazing feat. It's not often that we see a company of that market cap size move more than 10% upward. And Tesla moved up 11.8%. They blew their quarterly earnings out of the water with $18.8 billion in revenue and $3.3 billion in net income. And revenue doesn't take it. Revenue is the total amount of money they made, not taking into account expenses and things like that. But net income does take expenses into account. So, congrats to Tesla. Continue to do amazing things. But the interesting thing about Tesla is that EV, the car market, is probably just the beginning of this company. They have robot taxis coming. They have robots coming. And according to Elon, their robots may even outdo their car production. So it's crazy. I think one of the best American company story in a long time. According to Ars Technica, Elon Musk still wants Twitter, and he now has secured $46.5 billion in financing. So of that $46.5 billion that he needed, he would cover $21 billion of the purchase price himself, and the rest would be covered by a handful of banks that will loan him $12.5 billion against his shares in Tesla, along with an additional $10 billion in financing. So what does that mean? So there's the poison pill that the Twitter board put in place, where individual stockholders can buy more shares to dilute Elon's number of shares, and also I believe it was I forget which other company had more shares than Elon, but yeah. So they put that poison pill in there. You can buy more, but you can't exceed a certain percentage, and to dilute to prevent a takeover, basically. So now, what's going to happen is now the shareholders will have an opportunity to say, okay, do they take this deal from Elon or no? So that's going to be interesting to watch. By the way, the members of the board for Twitter, they own very little number of shares in the company, yet they have made tremendous decisions on behalf of the shareholders. So we'll see how that battle play out. According to Seeking Alpha, Meta platform slide as firms check current quarter slowing worse than Q1. Q1 is when they had their faceplant, Facebook faceplant. They're down more than 37% since early February. The first quarter looks weak, and April's to date business is slowing even more than that. So I keep wanting to say faceplant, but Facebook / Meta, they're exceptional at copying the competitor. So they in their last venture, they copy they created Reels, which is a copy of TikTok, and so far it's been lackluster. According to CNBC, as the U.S. 10-year Treasury yield keeps climbing, there's a chance that it's going to have an impact on what's happening in China too. So you get the U.S. 10-year Treasury yield is climbing to a 3-year high, and it's erasing the gap between its Chinese counterpart, the Chinese 10-year Treasury yield over there. And that hasn't happened in over a decade. So what does that mean? So that means that as the U.S. 10-year yield go up above the Chinese yield, so it could potentially attract more investors in holding the U.S. bonds, because the yield is higher versus the Chinese bonds. And this is due to the differences in people, People's Bank of China in loosening their monetary policy and cutting rates versus the U.S. Federal Reserve tightening their monetary policy and raising rates. So something to keep an eye on. According to Fortune, we're in a housing market where nobody wants to sell, and it could get even worse from here. So let's just review what has happened. For months, the U.S. housing market has been plagued by historical low inventory of homes for sale. Combine that with extremely low interest rate, where people want to finance homes at low interest rate because they'll cost less money. And so low inventory, low interest rate propel competition for to compete for the low amount of inventory that's out there, jacking up the price of homes. So now we have another scenario. Now interest rate is over 5% for a 30-year fixed rate. So now sellers are thinking, why should I sell my house that I finance at 2 or 3% and then buy a new one at 5+%? Doesn't make sense. So they're less willing to sell. Therefore, inventory is going to drop even more. So that's going to create an interesting real estate market. According to CNBC, a weekly jobless claims total 184,000 for the week ending in April the 16th, slightly above the previous week and a bit higher than the estimate. However, we are currently in the lowest level since February 21st, 1970. So we're slightly increased, but we're still at the lowest period. According to Market Watch, Fannie Mae forecasts U.S. economy to fall into recession next year. That's 2023. They're predicting that in 2022 GDP outlook, originally they predicted 2.1%, and now they slashed it down 0.2 points down. And for 2023, they initially estimated 2.2 in GDP growth. Now they predicting negative 0.1% for GDP growth. So we're not growing. We're going to contract. So they're basing this on expectation of a modest recession in the latter half of 2023 to meet the Federal Reserve's inflation objective. And they expect the housing sales to drop by 7.4% this year and 9.7% in 2023. Also, according to CNBC, New York Governor, I'm going to butcher her name, sorry, Hochu? Sounds like a sneeze, sorry. Warns of a rising tide of COVID cases as Omicron subvariants drive spikes in infections. The good news, though, is not that's the bad news. The good news of the bad news is that the two mutated strains of the highly transmittable Omicron variant, they're the culprits behind the rising cases. But health experts have not seen any evidence that the new strains are more severe than the others. So they're not expecting a repeat of last winter's surges in cases. So that's good. We don't want, increases in hospitalization and deaths, but keep an eye on this. According to South China Morning Post, China Evergrande crisis, the developer is offering 2,000 completed flats, houses in the Labor Day sales that will test its credibility. So around the Labor Day sale, that's one of the hottest period for people to buy homes in China. So they're promoting this around April the 30th. So why is this important? It's important because now if people still believe in this company and still trust them, and they still have 300, what is it, they have a lot of debt, and so they haven't been able to pay it back. So if people are buying these homes, then that shows confidence in this company. But if they're not, that just shows more risk for Evergrande, or Evergrande, however you want to pronounce it. So it's their credibility is at stake. If they can't sell more homes or more products, and then they're more at risk of defaulting, because who's going to lend them money now? According to Reuters, Japan's cabinet secretary says the Solomon Islands and China pact may have an impact on the security of the region. And if you haven't been following, China and the Solomon Islands had a security agreement where China would help support them. And why is that a major threat to the area? Because that area, Solomon Islands and New Zealand, and it's very rich in natural resources. So by having an agreement with the Solomon Islands, China can go in and mine or extract the resources from there. And that's the backyard of Australia and New Zealand, which are very Western friendly. So something to keep additional things to keep an eye on. According to CNN News, outcry as Shanghai sends vulnerable citizens into makeshift quarantine camps. I got to read this to you because it makes the U.S. mask mandate that became so polarizing seems like nothing. So this is a story about a 90-year-old woman and her 70-year-old son in the dark of night, like 2 a.m. in the morning on Tuesday. There was banging on their apartment door in a rundown housing complex in Shanghai. When they didn't answer, the men pried open the lock and barged in. These visitors demanded to take the woman and her 74-year-old son to a quarantine center because, according to their records, both had tested positive. However, both have since tested negative on the following test. When the 92-year-old woman refused to go, it was alleged that they dragged her out of bed, dragged her onto the floor, and continued to pull her out of their apartment, where her son, fear for the worst, helped her get dressed and agreed to comply. Wow. And so mask mandate in the U.S., nothing. Also, according to CNN, the head of Russia's second biggest oil company has quit. One of Russia's richest men, Vagit Alexperov, has quit as a CEO of Lukoil, the country's second largest oil company. And this announcement came days after he was sanctioned by the United Kingdom, and 7 weeks after Lukoil broke ranks with President Vladimir Putin and called for an end to Russia's war in Ukraine. Hey, at least he had a chance to quit and didn't get poisoned by his underwear or like sent to Siberia or something. Hey. Okay, according to Reuters, Germany will end its imports from Russia. Will end oil imports from Russia by year end. It says this minister. Here's their plan. They want to halve. In case you didn't know, Germany is the biggest economy in Europe. So they want to halve their oil by summer and zero it out by the end of the year, and then gas will follow. And this is a joint European roadmap. So that will help them ease off of depending on Russia for energy. That's positive. That's positive for the world. We need to pay less things for Russian products. According to USA Today, speak softly and carry a large javelin. As Biden, excuse me, unveils the latest help that the U.S. sent into Ukraine with $800 million in military aid package. And this is following the prior week commitment of $800 million. So I just thought the Biden has a way with words sometimes. And then that was pretty cool. So this came on top of an announcement made the same day by Russian President Putin, where he claimed victory in the battle for Mariupol. So they pretty much have taken over that area, with the exception of a holdout by Ukraine troops in a sprawling steel plant in the city. And so they're just waiting that out. And according to the news, Putin says, do not, bomb that place. Just secure the area and seal it off. So basically, they're going to wait them out. We'll see what happens. According to Blockworks.co, Coinbase unveils its social NFT marketplace, which looks a lot like Instagram, featuring a rhythmic feed that displays content appealing to the user. So it's a direct competition to, and this is in beta. They announced their NFT efforts months ago. And this is in direct competition with rivals such as OpenSea and Rarible. According to CoinDesk, Binance US has quit Blockchain Association, which is a pretty large organization that helps with work to educate and also influence politicians and the White House. They quit, and now they are forming their own in-house lobbying shop. The reason they quit, according to the groups, according to them, is that their goals weren't fully aligned, which is interesting because back when Binance first joined the lobbying group in August 2020, Coinbase quit and said that their reason for quitting was at odds with the association's mission. And so that was a nice way of saying they don't agree with Binance US. And so Coinbase left supposedly mainly because of Binance US, and now Binance US left. So we'll see what happens with this group, Blockchain Association. And that's the end of the news. It's a lot of news. So let's dive in and take a look at the markets here. We'll start off with the crypto heat map here. We Bitcoin. Well, overall, it's mixed. Some greens, some reds here. Bitcoin 41.4K, a drop from like 43, and we'll see that in a minute here. Dominance 41.23, Ethereum 3K, dominance 19.26. Yeah, it's a mixed bag. Let's take a look at the market cap here. Went up 0.34% day over day at $1.91 trillion. And here's the top 20. Let's see here. Bitcoin gaining market cap here. We got XRP, Solana down, Luna gaining market cap 1.72, Cardano gaining a little bit of market cap, Binance 0.20 gain, Wrapped Bitcoin 0.84 gain, Matic 0.67 gain, Crow 0.85 gain. So we have some gains, some losses in market caps here. Equities market looked horrible. Bad, really bad. Every sector looks bad. Technology, pretty blood red to muted red. Communication services, consumer cyclical, bright red to muted red here. We got muted red over here. Amazon really red. Baba really red. Google really red. Consumer defensive not as red, but more muted green. Get mostly muted green, muted red. Financials from bright red to muted red. We got healthcare, some pieces of greens here, but overall red to muted red. Industrials mix here also, muted red mostly, some reds, some greens. Real estate, muted red, muted green. Utilities, we got muted red, muted green. Energy, bright red here mostly. Basic materials, pretty bright red here. So horrible market for horrible day for the stock market in the U.S. Let's take a look at the watch list here. Nasdaq index here down negative 1.83. S&P 500 index down negative 1.34. The Dow index here down negative 0.97. Volatility index went up 13.63% to 23. Dixie went up 0.29%, just above 100 at 100.6. U.S. 10-year yield up 2.26 at 2.9. Let's take a look at the oil. Oil, we're back above 100 at $103.64. That's up 1.21. Gold is down 0.28. Silver's down 2.04. Let's take a look at how the dollar and its companions are doing here. Euro is down against the dollar at 0.17. The pound is down against the dollar at 0.33, and the dollar is up against the yen at 0.4. So let's take a look at some trends. Bitcoin over here, we see that Bitcoin, since yesterday's market opening, after it dropped a little bit, for the rest of the day, it climbed. It climbed all the way up to roughly around 43, almost 43. Yeah, almost 43. And then after market opening, it tanked. Okay, so let's take a look at the positive correlation with Nasdaq and S&P 500. It's like 100%. It's 100%. Both dropped significantly, right there. All three dropped significantly, and same with the Dow right here. So positive correlation is in place. Negative correlation with the Dixie is somewhat in place. It would take a look here. So Dixie pretty much climbed since yesterday at actually last night, just after midnight, it started climbing here, and so somewhat the timing is a little off, but the negative correlation is there between Dixie and Bitcoin. Here's the U.S. 10-year yield here. We got it bounced back up as of yesterday after around 3 p.m. or so. Yeah, actually 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Bounced back up and then reach a local high here and started dropping after the market closed, roughly around 9-10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, positive correlation is in place with Bitcoin and Nasdaq and S&P 500, and negative correlation is in place with the Dixie. Let's go over to European markets and see. UK 100, similar picture. They were trending back up for the last 7 days, and they just bombed back down to its lowest range. Yeah, pretty bad for UK 100. The DAX in Germany, in their current session right here, they opened up higher and just slight decline. Same thing with CAC from France, open up higher but slight decline, and similar thing with the SXXP or Stock 600. Let's go over to Australia and Asia. Australia in their last market opening session here, slight trend up here. And overall 7-day trend up still holding, and the Nikkei 225 slight trend up here in the last 3 days, and it's at its high point in the last 7 days. KOSPI from South Korea, similar situation. Open high, but trended down slightly. But on a 5-day, still up. 7 days, still up above. Hang Seng HSI from Hong Kong, 7-day trend down, continued trend down in this last session. The CSI 300 from China, or Shanghai in particular, is trending down at 7-day and open down and choppy down. So, it's a horrible day for the U.S. Equities market. We see in the U.K. horrible session for them too, but there's positive trends in the other parts of Europe, Australia, parts of Asia here, not including China. So it's horrible in places, but also there's some positive movements here. So with that, we are wrapped up with the news. There's a lot of news, so keep an eye out on those factors. Basically, we're looking at China, Russia, inflation, and the U.S. stock market as far as earnings reports for this week and next week, and COVID. Yeah, so those are the priorities that I look at to try to predict what's going to come in front, headwinds, if you will. All right, feel free to smash the like, ring my bell, hit subscribe if you haven't, and share your thoughts in the comment section. Appreciate it. I'll see you in the next video for Bitcoin.